friends, and welcome back to the Story-Driven Business Podcast. My name is Susanna, the world's leading story-driven employer branding expert. And today, I am diving into a topic that is less about glitter and more about grit. This is budgeting employer branding for 2026. Because if you want your story-driven business to succeed in the next few years, this is not just an HR conversation. This is a leadership, finance, and growth conversation. And it all starts now in budgeting season. Let me take you into a moment many of you will recognize. The CFO leans forward at the budgeting table asking, do we really need to invest in employer branding again next year? Recruitment isn't as urgent anymore. The HR lead shifts in their chair. Marketing suddenly remembers their notes. The CEO looks around, waiting for someone to speak up, and then silence. In that silence, the employer branding budget quietly disappears. And so begins a year where talent pipelines dry up, employee loyalty fades, and competitive positioning weakens. Not loudly, not dramatically, but slowly and silently until it's too late. This episode is making sure you don't fall into that trap. I want to start with why employer branding budgets often get cut. Now, employer branding is misunderstood. Too many companies treat it as a flashy recruitment campaign, a shiny EVP project, or a one-off marketing exercise. So when times are tight, employer branding looks like the easiest cut, and no one is fighting for it. But here's the reality. Not every employer actually has an employer brand. What every employer does have is an employer image. An image is simply what people think about you, and it's formed through scattered experiences, word of mouth, and opinions floating in the market. Some of them are correct, some of them are wrong, some of them were accurate ones but are now outdated. And a brand, however, only exists when there's emotional connection. A brand is what people don't just know about you. It's about how they feel about you. And that emotional connection is what makes people choose you, stick with you, and advocate for you. And it's what you really need now more than anything, as your organization is probably going through yet another change because of this AI-driven world. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out last week's episode 205, where I talked about how to navigate AI-driven changes in your business and organization. Now, unless you actively cultivate and invest in building that emotional connection known as your brand, you don't truly have an employer brand. You only have an employer image. And here's the kicker. If you're not funding the work of building a brand, your image is left to be shaped by others, your ex-employees, competitors, even anonymous reviewers on Glassdoor, and they will not always paint you in the light that you'd like. That is why budgeting for employer branding in 2026 is not a nice to have. It's not a recruitment campaign. It's not about your EVP. It's the only way to move from being a passive image, scattered images on the market, to becoming a magnetic brand that attracts, retains, and inspires, and not just your people, but your customers and investors and other important stakeholders too. That silence is expensive. So the danger of cutting or underfunding employer branding is that the damage isn't immediate. It's not like switching off a job ad, taking it off the internet, and instantly seeing fewer applicants. It's more like turning off heating in November. The room feels fine at first, but soon the cold creeps in, and by the time you realize it, You're already freezing. Here's what the cold looks like in business terms. Vacant roles that drag on for months. Salary demands that rise because candidates don't trust your reputation. Employees quietly slipping out of the door and choosing other organizations whose transformation, whose business, whose change just simply feels more appealing, more emotionally attractive. Onboarding costs multiplying because new hires don't stay, and productivity and innovation slip as engagement drops. Now, let's be clear. All of these cost far more than maintaining a consistent employer branding process. Cutting EB budgets isn't saving money. It's just creating a bigger bill that arrives later. If you've never really budgeted for employer branding, here's the mistake many companies make. They think employer branding means campaigns, concepts, or one-off projects. But that's not employer branding, that's advertising. Real employer branding is a long-term, story-driven communication process that builds emotional connection. And sure, you can amplify that with marketing, promotional content, and advertising. But you need to have that story-driven communication process there that makes sure that your messaging is attractive, appealing, and able to build emotional connection. And the budget for it properly, you need to think at least in these 5 categories. Strategic planning, that's where you start. Then is creative assets, resourcing execution, the processes and the tools required, strategic partners, and training to upskill and maintain learned skills and important skills as you focus then on executing in the long term. So I want to start with employer brand strategy, because before you invest in any assets, tools, execution, training, you need a strategic foundation. And for companies new to employer branding, budget for the development of your first employer branding strategy. I'm saying purposefully employer branding because I don't want you to think that this is a one-off thing. Employer branding is a continuous process for the long term. It's a marathon, whereas your recruitment campaign is a sprint. So for companies with an existing strategy, budget for strategic updates to keep and stay aligned with your business goals, market changes, or upcoming talent priorities. And this first step ensures your EB work is not just a series of scattered activities, but an aligned, measurable, and long-term process. Without strategy, you really risk producing content and activities that look and feel nice, but don't move the needle for you. We talk about the storifying plan here at my agency because your employer brand strategy is the why and what, and then you need to have the storifying plan to cover the how. And this is your content and communications action plan that brings the strategy alive in daily, weekly, and monthly actions. You can also include any activities, any fairs, any meetups, anything like that in it. But mostly, the most important thing is to focus on the messaging through communications and content, because that is something that you can do daily. This plan defines the themes and narrative to tell in 2026, the content formats, the channels, the publishing rhythm, responsibilities, and workflows. And budgeting here covers the planning, the editorial calendars, the messaging frameworks that guide every creative execution, and also the resources who are going to be responsible for this work. This plan ensures that what you produce isn't random content, but a consistent storyline that builds that emotional connection. And you can document and archive all your content, all your messages, so that it is more efficient for you to come back and repurpose and reshare anything that really worked well. Then we go to the creative assets. So your employer brand lives in stories, and stories need production. So you need to budget for visuals. This means authentic photography, branded templates, designed assets, video, storytelling videos, social media edits, employee features, copywriting, career page text, articles, storytelling captions, also your recruitment marketing collateral, content planning from calendars and messaging frameworks. And then it's really important that this is not about making things look nice. It's about ensuring that your story can be seen, heard, and felt consistently. Then you have the execution related processes and tools, because you can't build a sustainable employer brand without systems. I love systems. So think about the what social media management tools you might need to plan and publish consistently, content creation tools like Canva, Descript, Adobe Express, equipment such as microphones, cameras, ring lights, tripods, teleprompter apps. Those are really helpful. I use them all the time when I do videos, because that makes me more confident in my video delivery, and so will you. And then obviously analytics dashboards to track reach, sentiment, ROI. And these tools are not going to replace people, so you need people to actually use this equipment, but they make your people far more effective. Then it's resourcing. This is where many budgets fail, because they fund the what as a project, but not the how to execute it and who's going to do it. So employer branding doesn't happen by magic. It needs skills. It needs time, commitment to time, and ownership. This is not a side gig from that the marketing department oversees, or the communications keeps very tight hands on and only gives a time for it when they have time from their other obligations. This is something that you need to be concerned about on a daily basis. So you want to budget for strategic leadership, so someone to define that story and align it with business story, business goals, mission, vision, purpose, and so on. You need creative production, writers, designers, videographers. You need execution, publishing, community management, engagement, analytics, data analysis. And you also need employee advocacy programs, training, activating, and even rewarding ambassadors. So if you don't budget for execution, your strategy will sit on the shelf and you're not actually achieving anything. And then we have a section for strategic partners and training. So sometimes you need an outside partner to accelerate those results and fill capability and resourcing gaps. That might mean partnering with a strategic, creative, and executive agency like employer branding agency Emine or many others in other countries, running training programs for HR recruiters, managers, leadership, advocates, launching those employee ambassador initiatives, rewarding employee ambassadors for the work that they do, and offering coaching and workshops to align leaders with the story. Budgeting for this ensures that your employer brand is not just a marketing veneer, but actually a lived cultural reality. Now, I want to talk to you about the story-driven difference. This is what I call story-driven budgeting. It's not about buying ads or funding one-offs. It's about funding the system that builds your employer brand, that emotional connection that makes people want to work and stay with you. When you budget story-driven employer branding, you're funding a consistent narrative that grows over time and ties employee experiences and attention to your business strategy, your mission, your customer promise, your purpose, and what the future looks like for your business and your individuals professionally, but also personally when you successfully deliver those intended business goals and results. Also, you're funding the tools and the processes to deliver at scale and the resources, the partners who make it happen with you or for you. When you budget for story-driven employer branding, ROI is undeniable. Faster hiring with stronger candidates, lower turnover, and reduce replacement costs, higher engagement, productivity, advocacy, innovation. stronger reputation and competitiveness, and not just an employer, but as a business, and improved customer experiences, satisfaction, leading into better customer lifetime value. So what can 2026 look like for you? Let's imagine it. You didn't cut your EP budget, so you invested it properly. Your narrative machine, this is your content machine, is consistent. It's credible internally and externally. Your employees are sharing and advocating their stories with pride. Your candidates arrive already convinced of your culture, your mission, your business. They know more about you because they're also invested in that business story. Your people make your customers excited, inspired, and content about your business, products, and services. Your CFO, now they smile because recruitment costs are down. Your CEO smiles because the business strategy and culture are aligned. Your VP of sales and customers smile because of the inbound improved customer value, meeting sales budgets, and receiving customer feedback and recommendations from content customers. And your employees smile because they feel emotionally connected, appreciated, and achieved and inspired about the work that they contribute towards every single day. That is the difference between an employer image and a story-driven employer brand. And that's the payoff of budgeting right. Is it time for you to consider the first steps of becoming a story-driven business if this is the vision of the likely outcome? Start by budgeting for story-driven employer branding. Connecting your people with your business purpose, mission, and goals is the first step, and the only step to overarching employer brand value. Warren Buffett once said, it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. Budgeting story-driven employer branding for 2026 is exactly that, a chance to do things differently. So here's my challenge for you. If you've never budgeted for EB, make 2026 the year you start. If you've treated it like a campaign, shift to story-driven budgeting. And if you only had an employer image, invest in building a true employer brand. Because your people are your business and their story is the future. Make sure it's funded. Find the show notes for this episode at modernemployerbrand.com/podcast206. Learn more about story-driven employer branding and get my book on Amazon or get it directly from me when you get a hardcover version signed and sealed from me. So that would be at storydrivenemployerbranding.com. And since it's still August, you have a little bit time left to enjoy my birthday gift to you. 30% off the hardcover available at storydrivenemployerbranding.com until the end of August 2025. Just apply the code birthday30 in capital letters and 30 in numbers to get the discount. Keep leading with story. Until next week, my name is Susanna Rantanen, and this is Story Driven Business Podcast.